Several investigations are underway into the shooting at the local and state as well as federal levels, and alleged police brutality as well as racial unrest has become a national conversation. Joining us live this morning right here on the Good Day Atlanta set is civil rights activist, the Reverend Jesse Jackson. He's in Atlanta for the Restore Our Community seminar, and I'm sure you can provide some unique perspective on what's going on in Ferguson, Missouri. Thanks for coming in this morning.
Creating opportunities conference here.
You are headed to St. Louis this afternoon.
Yes.
Tell me why you feel the need to go. Have you spoken to Michael Brown's family?
Well, the members of the family and clergy persons, because Ferguson has become a metaphor for abandoned urban policy. You have the inequality. You have a 70% African-American community, 55 police, only 3 are African-American. The inequality in the police department, the fire department, jobs and contracts, so people feel a sense of alienation and abandonment. And these police departments and fire departments have federal funds, so the law must be enforced to have fair opportunity in education and jobs and contracts.
Reverend Jackson, have you spoken to Michael Brown's family?
Only some members of the family.
And what are they saying to you, and what are you telling them?
Well, of course, they're still distraught. I mean, they saw their son executed in broad daylight. But there's a pattern, you see. It's Trayvon Martin, it's Diallo in New York, it's Abner Louima in New York, rammed in the rectum, he nearly bled to death in police stations, Eric Garner. It's now Michael Brown with his hands up, which is a great symbol of the struggle, because it seems that when police engage in this behavior, there is no sense of accountability. And it's so humiliating. We must pull out the Kerner Commission report, because here we are now, 50 years later, we're very separate and free but unequal. The disparities is now driving the agenda. Young people have found that tuition is too costly. Even when they can pay it, the diploma without a job. So there's a great sense of alienation.
As you've been watching the events unfold in Ferguson, we haven't heard the police officer's name yet. That has not yet been released. What do you want to happen next?
That's astonishing. Well, we need to know his name, who he is. He should be accountable to the public. He works for the public. We need to know where Michael Brown was shot, how many times he was shot. They're concealing his name, but they're also concealing evidence. And part of that is driving the anger over the fact this guy is totally, he has a gun and a badge, and he shot someone unarmed at 2:32 on Saturday afternoon, and his face has not been made visible yet. So it's created a national outrage. But I feel that in the city of Atlanta, Memphis, Chicago, Newark, it's very much these cities, the urban cities, are kind of like donut holes, because we've taken away public housing, foreclosed private housing, guns in, drugs in, jobs out. There's a sense that we need a White House conference on urban policy and reconstruction. This is really very much a national issue, where you had dry chips. Spark was Ferguson. Spark could have been in the place.
Well, there was a lot of criticism, obviously, right off the bat about the way that the police department handled this whole situation. It took a few days for the governor to say, hey, you know what, we're going to call it. Look at this. I mean, look at this video. This is incredible when you see the kind of violence that was going on the streets of Ferguson, Missouri, before the National Guard was finally, or the Highway Patrol, rather, was called in to really take over. Is there some criticism?
But the reason I raised the Kerner Commission report is that you look at it in the 60s, the riots report, whether it was Newark or Detroit or Chicago or LA, it was always this excessive force by police that was a spark that set off the dry chips. This is only a degree different from Birmingham.
Are you not feeling a little bit better today about the fact that the governor finally said, okay, you know what? Somebody else has to step in. And it was peaceful last night. I mean, things feel moving in the right direction, or no?
Quiet.
Things are quiet.
Quiet is the absence of noise. Peace is the presence of justice. There's nothing to deal with the issue of fair distribution of police jobs and firemen's jobs and contracts and opportunities. And so being quiet is not a great victory. We need justice. And whether it's in the public or private sector, we've been looking at that. There are no riots in Silicon Valley yet with Apple and eBay and Hewlett Packard. No African Americans, no Latinos, no women on boards and C-suites, and they're still locking us out of these jobs and bringing in H-1B workers from Asia. And so it seems to me that we need a policy that's far more comprehensive. The crisis in Ferguson is just a symbol that gives us a suggestion of what we need to do.
And what are you going to do when you go there this afternoon? Who are you going to meet with, and what are you going to say?
We'll meet with members of the family and urge encourage them to engage in nonviolent disciplinary activity, and make sure the demand structure includes the impact of the health crisis. I mean, these cities, these states, like Georgia, for example, are resisting Medicaid money when people are sick and poor. Medicaid would create, Georgia turning away more than $10 billion in Medicaid money. Guess what it does? Jobs and health care for people, an opportunity for people. You have the case here in the Department of Justice cannot just come in and ensure there's no riot. They also must enforce federal contracts. The police departments are getting contracts.
What about the militarization of the police force?
There's too much of it. I mean, it's excessive, and it really was a police riot. Far more than it was a police riot.
Look at that video.
These have been thrown by police.
Yes.
And when the police stands up with his gun, flashes his gun, calling black people animals, we deserve better than this. This is not right. It's not fair. It's not just, and it's unacceptable.
Okay. You're headed there this afternoon. Before you leave for St. Louis, of course, you're going to be hosting a brunch today to talk about this new conference, or 15th annual conference that you have coming up. And this is really about jobs and bringing jobs to America and keeping them here.
Creating opportunities. Attorney Janice Mathis is directing this project. She directs it here in Atlanta. Reverend Jasper Williams is the conference chair this year. Focus a lot on the impact of home foreclosures and church foreclosures. The banks who put subprime and predatory lending, the banks got bailed out. People got locked out. That's an issue. Issue of the fair state contracts. I mean, the devastation, a state like from Virginia around to Texas, these former Confederate states, are turning down federal money for Medicaid. Now, they accept federal money for military bases and highways and universities and ports and airports and seaports, but not for Medicare. And so we're going to talk a lot about jobs. The hip-hop group will be here. Young people must find. And so when you bring in Silicon Valley is coming to the conference, one of these kids learn apps and codes to get involved in the language of the new media.
And in the end, really keeping those jobs here and putting our young people to work may help avoid some of the situations we see across the country. Reverend Jackson,
of course it will.
Thank you. We appreciate your time
this morning. Thank you very much.
We want to, again, thank you for making the time to come see us.
And follow me on Twitter at Rev J. Jackson.
I'm going to follow you. I will like you. 15th Annual Creating Opportunity Conference, which will be taking place here in Atlanta.